Hello.
Hi.
So we're here today to put Robbie through a little bit of an exercise that I planned out, and he's not really sure what's going on, but we're gonna try it. So it's important for him to know that I love him before this starts.
I know.
And here we go. So I just got a series of questions for you, and I just want you to answer them honestly, and don't try to guess what kind of answers I want. Just answer exactly how you feel.
Okay.
So, growing up, what did you worry about the most?
Growing up, what did I worry about the most? Probably that people would like me. And it probably depends on the generation, like elementary school, middle school. I don't know.
That's valid.
Thank you.
Validating.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Just curious, have you ever heard of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs besides when I made you write this out?
I had heard it in passing, but did not know what it was. It's like the food pyramid, but not like the food pyramid.
So we talked about this a little a few weeks ago. Do you want to give it a stab, trying to explain what it means? You might want to hold it up.
Yeah, I only know a little bit about it because I researched it in drawing this diagram here. Hopefully you guys can see it. It's the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And these are kind of like stages that this Maslow guy thought you would need to, I guess, succeed in life or have a happy life. Maybe. I'm not fully understanding.
It's your level of needs.
Right.
So before any needs up here can be met,
Right.
his theory is that the needs down here need to be met first.
Before you can get to the next level.
The first level down here is your physiological needs. Volcano, that's really cool.
Cool. All right.
Okay, thank
you. Go keep playing, thanks.
So down here are your physiological needs. So your first needs are your food, water, things like that.
Shelter, is that in there or is that safety?
I think it depends.
Kind of in between there, maybe.
So biological requirements for human survival. So I guess warmth, sleep require shelter for the most part.
Daddy, this is
Got it.
not blue. This is not blue.
That's a green one.
Good observation.
Yep.
Where's blue go?
I don't know.
Go find one.
Go see if he's in your bucket in there.
He's on the volcano. He's in you.
Well, the second level, safety. Protection from elements, security, order, law, stability, and freedom from fear. And if you got all your food and water, you feel safe, then you can start thinking about belongingness and having friends and relationships. And if that needs being met, then you can think about esteem, like I want to feel accomplished in what I do, self-esteem, external validation, things like that. And if that needs being met, then you can reach self-actualization, where you can meet your full potential, have creative activities, things like that. And I think this can apply differently in different situations, like your overall, where you fall in this overall, might be situational as well. So if you're in a specific scenario, you might be worried about getting food and water, but...
Okay, thank you.
Daddy, move your arm.
Oh, fine.
Please. So, based on the answer that you just gave me about what you worried about the most as a kid, where do you think you fell as a child on this level? Hierarchy, pyramid. What needs were being met in your life when you were a child, and what needs did you still need to develop?
That was probably an esteem issue, I guess.
Well, you were wondering about friends accepting you, people accepting you.
I don't know, just people in general.
People would like me. So maybe you floated between.
Oh, okay.
Maybe you floated between these two.
Probably.
Depending on the
I
day.
want to put you up behind here.
Okay. I'm gonna leave my arm here. Nope, that's where my arm's going.
I want to get my dinosaur.
So, do you think you've ever had to worry about the needs on the bottom of the pyramid? Maybe not in a sense of responsibilities, like I need to go buy groceries or that, but
Hey,
felt like
This is a green raptor.
that's a green one. Okay.
Daddy, move your
Aaron is
arm.
wanting to
Nope.
feel loved and like he belongs.
He wants to share.
He's here in the pyramid.
Yeah.
So you can put that down. You don't
Okay.
really need to look at it, but so maybe not in the sense of responsibility. So of course we all need to go buy groceries, make sure we're making money, have an income to buy our food,
Daddy,
and
this is his mommy.
Okay. Cool.
They are fine and Daddy.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing all your dinosaur stuff.
but have you ever feared that that need was not going to be met in your life, that you weren't going to be able to get food and water?
They already should.
No.
They already so. They already watch the show, Daddy.
Okay.
Aaron, do you get food and water?
No.
Oh gosh, that need's not being met. Are you
Not
sure?
met.
Are you
Matt.
sure?
No.
You never eat fruit snacks?
Yeah.
Yeah, you do. Okay, we don't starve our child.
Yeah, I think I'm good on that one.
So, have you ever perceived others in school or in society that have struggled to meet these needs?
Ever perceived them? What do you mean?
Like,
Daddy.
have you
This
seen
is-
people
This is
in the world that don't have all of these needs met
This
Yeah.
is his
in the
mommy.
physiological category?
Daddy,
Yeah.
this is his mommy.
Okay.
He's
Yeah,
on
you
his
go-
head.
You walk in any big city, there's gonna be homeless people. I'm assuming that they're obviously their shelter and their food needs aren't being met. Sleep, warmth, clothing, that stuff's probably hard to come by at that level.
So, when you were growing up worrying about
They already threw a
being
soda,
liked by
Daddy.
other people,
Oh! Whoa, whoa.
do you think
There's a
people that are
close one,
still
Daddy.
worrying about physiological needs really had a chance to worry about being liked?
I wouldn't. They've obviously got other things to worry about at that point.
So imagine a child going to school. If these needs aren't being met, do you think that they're on the same level as another child going to school that are just worried about fitting in, or do you think there's other things occupying their minds?
Maybe.
Do you think they're going to be able to perform to the same level as a person who's got more needs being fulfilled?
Would be a lot harder, for sure. I think they could still worry about being liked by other people too, so that's just extra piled on.
Right. So let's move to the second level of the
Okay.
pyramid, safety. What has been the greatest fear you've ever had?
Greatest fear I've ever had.
Whether it's for your safety, a bad situation you were in.
This is a triceratops, little triceratops.
Okay. Thank you. There's been some.
Did I watch the show and I'm watching the show on
This video is gonna be so long.
It's okay.
Car, like obviously automobile stuff, like
You
close
so-
calls. I
you
feel
gotta go
obviously
home,
unsafe
okay?
and scared in those
Okay.
situations. I played in a band, and there was some times when I'd have to park far away from the venue and just walk down dark streets with guitar gear and stuff.
Home, Daddy.
Okay.
So fear of getting robbed, or
Yeah, fear of getting robbed, even if there weren't people around, just like thinking about it, I guess.
is there a fear that you had regularly, ever? Something that you
No.
feared every time you did something else, or
Anytime I walk.
fear of doing things because you were afraid of something else happening? Has fear ever been restricting in your life?
Probably not in a. Wow. That's a tough question. I never really
Like,
thought about
you're
it.
so scared of a roller coaster you never got on it, or
Hey, Daddy, does dinosaur have spicy, have stripe cheese?
Mhm. Yeah,
And he can eat a buddy.
he's a meat eater, probably, yeah. I'm sure there's physical things like I used to skateboard. There's probably tricks and stuff and ramps I wouldn't go down. And then going along with the wanting to be liked thing, I'll just fear of doing something wrong in a social situation or stuff like
People
that.
not liking you.
Yeah.
That's a fear.
Right.
Have you ever been physically or verbally abused by your peers or your family in an inappropriate or repeated way to the extent that you were suffering
Daddy.
mental or physical
He's
pain?
seeing his tail.
Not that I can think of. So obviously it probably didn't happen if I've been yelled at before.
Teasing, yelling, but not
Teased, but I've never,
something you would call abuse.
What the?
I don't know. I feel like I don't let teasing get to me so much. So for me, no. But maybe other people might call it abuse. I don't know.
When you were a teenager, skateboarding in the park
Mm-hmm.
or
I'm
shopping
playing dinosaurs.
Okay.
shopping in a drugstore or at school, did you fear that you would get in trouble even if you weren't breaking any rules?
No.
Have you ever had any incidents where you've gotten questioned by an authority figure, a principal, parent, other than your own, police officer?
Mhm.
Can you talk about it?
Yeah, I got pulled over one time for having like a really old license plate that I guess there's a paint layer or like a reflective layer that was chipping off, and the officer couldn't read the license plate, and she said she has to be able to read it from like 100 feet away, and we were on the highway, so I got pulled over. I ended up getting a warning, but I was with 3 other friends, and I must have been like 19 or 20. We were on our way to a show, and she pulled us over and like told me to get out of the car, and I had this she had to pat me down. I put my hands on the hood of her car, and she patted me down, which is probably standard, I guess. If she said she doesn't know who she's dealing with. She wants to, obviously make sure she's safe before she does her computer processing. And so then I had to sit in the back of the car while she typed
I
in
don't
my
think you
license.
ever told me this.
Really?
Hmm.
I feel like I should.
Maybe.
I did, but
A long time ago.
yeah. And I don't know if it's just because we were teens who, a couple of my friends had long hair, and we were going to a concert, so I don't know if she thought we had drugs on us or had been drinking, or my friend had brought an airsoft gun along with him that was sitting in the back seat.
I do remember that.
So maybe she thought we were going to go cause trouble with the airsoft gun, but he had just brought it to show another friend that we were with. So yeah, that was one instance.
So how did that kind of pan out? What happened next after?
She looked us, I guess, all of us up and found that we were fine kids, even though we looked like we might be causing trouble. And
Did she ever threaten your safety during that situation?
no, there wasn't anything threatening about it. It was more of her being cautionary, I guess.
So let's talk for a moment about freedom from fear. So that's one of the things that's kind of called out in the safety level of the hierarchy. And you stated that some of your fears were not being liked by other people, or things like not doing skateboarding tricks because
Physical fear
of hurting yourself. But when we were going through a couple of scenarios, you mentioned that there were a number of situations where you did not have to fear for your safety within your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very thankful that you've had this privilege.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy that you've lived your life in a higher level of the hierarchy of needs. But growing up, did you ever consider this freedom from fear as a privilege?
No, because I never thought about it.
Like so many others, including myself, in many cases, we walk around with a naive sense of privilege. Our parents teach us to take what we're given and shoot for the moon, and that we have a fair chance to accomplish any goal. But in many cases, we have an unfair chance, a privileged chance to reach a goal. And for some people, an unfair chance, a non-privileged chance to reach a goal. As a child, did you know that you were privileged by having a loving home and a family that encouraged your education? Did you recognize that as privilege?
Not as a privilege, but as I don't want to say a blessing, but lucky, I guess, or I don't know.
Were you told that some other children couldn't even get access to a book? or that some children don't have parents that encourage them to use their minds?
Probably not those things specifically, but like I always kind of growing up knew there was people less fortunate, but never really thought about specific things like that.
Would you say as a young child you were naive to your privilege?
Yeah.
As a teen, trying to find your first job, did you know that you were privileged to find one?
I felt lucky when I got my first job. Well, my first
But-
real job.
But I guess there's kind of a difference between, would you agree that there's a difference between luck and privilege?
Yeah.
How would you define luck in this scenario?
I guess the luck in this scenario. So I went to interview at a local grocery store, and the owner / manager knew my grandpa. And I went in for the interview, and pretty much all it was, hey, is your grandpa who he is? Chuck. Is your grandpa Chuck? And I said, yeah. He's like, oh, I like Chuck. Can you work these hours? I was like, yeah. And then that's pretty much how I got the job.
Do you have your phone?
No, it's over there.
Can you look up the definition of luck?
Sure.
My phone's in use.
Yeah. I think I know what you're getting at, and it's a privilege to
Well,
have.
I'm not attacking you.
My grandpa-
I'm just curious because I feel like so many times in my own life I've called things luck, or
Mhm.
I've thought I'd had bad luck in a lot of scenarios, and maybe it's because I wasn't recognizing privileges that other people had, or I wasn't recognizing privileges that I had myself.
Mhm.
And I think in this scenario, and the reason I brought it up, obviously I knew about the fact that they mentioned your grandpa in your interview.
Mhm.
And the reason that I perceive it as privilege is there's so many people who, if people knew who their family was, or there's so many barriers that are created because of a person's family, or because of a person's race, or because of a person's upbringing.
Yep.
It limits their opportunities, but in your case, it has given you opportunities.
Right.
And to me, that's a definition of privilege. Whereas
True.
it's not as much, I mean, it's a small town, so it's funny that you ran into someone that knew your grandpa.
It's not
and
that surprising, I guess. That
it's just, I think that can be perceived as a privilege that you've had in your life.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
Right.
I think we need to all be recognizing privilege scenarios differently. So, what's the definition of luck?
Okay, we'll start with luck. I went ahead and looked up privilege too while we're at it. Luck is the success or failure apparently brought by chance rather than through one's own actions. So I guess you could say the chance was the manager of the store knew my grandpa. Or let's go see privilege. A special right, advantage, or immunity granted or available only to a particular person. So I think I'm a particular person who had a particular grandpa
Relationship.
who
with-
knew that particular manager. So it's kind of both.
It's both.
Yeah.
And that's a very simple example, and
Yes.
but there's so many examples that we overlook
Yeah.
in our lives and don't see them as privilege. We just see them as, oh, well, we worked hard for that, or
Happenstance.
yeah, like
Well, I knew I
it
didn't
just
work hard for
happened.
that. That had
That's
nothing
true.
to do with
That's true.
any hard work I did, or lack thereof.
So, at times as a teenager, do you think you were naive to your privilege?
Obviously. You don't if you
I
don't
wrote
think
this
about
before.
it.
So
Yeah.
it's a script.
Yeah.
So, as an adult, when you got to marry your best friend,
Mm-hmm.
did you ever have to doubt that this would be a legal option for you?
A legal option?
A legal option for you.
No. Until we went to the courthouse and they were like, "Are you cousins?" And I wasn't 100% sure because it's a small town, but
That's not what I mean. You know that's not what I mean.
yeah. No, I never had to question or doubt that.
So, as an adult, when you walk to your car from the grocery store by yourself, do you ever fear for your safety?
No.
As an adult, have you ever been denied a job opportunity?
Denied, like I've applied to places and said we don't, like, you're not a fit. Like, yeah, in that sense, yes.
As an adult, where would you say you fall in Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Now.
You mean like what needs are being met?
Mhm.
I think
Are you getting food and water?
yes. The only one,
Do you feel safe?
the majority of the time, yes.
Do you sometimes feel loved?
Most of the time, yes.
Um,
Esteem,
esteem, are there people recognizing your accomplishments?
yes.
Do you try to recognize your accomplishments?
I don't.
So you could probably work on
I could
those.
work on. That's a me thing.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that kind of guides into self-actualization, because when you start to have your own self-compassion, self-esteem, that's when you can reach your full potential, because you can't reach your full potential unless you look inside yourself. You can't look to validation from other people.
So somewhere between love, belonging, and esteem, I feel like.
No. We just talked about it being up here.
Oh,
Because you
Well,
feel loved and belonged, right?
true.
So you're
And
not down there.
and people other than me care about me and recognize my worth, I guess.
Yeah. So I think you're getting close, and I think
Okay.
this is a good. I think the fact that we're doing this exercise and are able to do this exercise means that our minds' needs are being met enough that we can have these creative thoughts or
So it's not all or
learn.
nothing.
Yeah.
Because
like-
sometimes I do have fears, physical and mental.
And that's what I was talking about at the beginning. Like in your general life, like I feel like you can generalize a place, but if you haven't eaten all day,
Right.
you might have some
The majority of the time
needs
they are
being
worrying.
met, yeah.
People are worrying about. Yeah.
yeah. But
Mhm.
people that live their general livelihood under a lower level
Yeah.
aren't going to be able to have thoughts up here
Right.
because they can't even think about those things
Yeah.
yet.
Yep. That makes sense.
So, do you think all children, teens, and adults are at the same level? Do you
No.
think all teens, all adults, any one of those categories?
No.
Do you agree that there are more obstacles to face if some of the lower hierarchical needs are not met? Like, say you're both trying to meet the same goal. If someone's down here but you're up here, do you think it'll be easier or harder for
Harder for them. Yeah.
So, do you think that each person's chance of success in life is completely equal? That everyone, if they work hard enough, can be equally as successful with the same amount of effort?
Not with the same amount of effort. No.
Cool.
Yeah.
I would have to agree with you.
Yeah.
I even wrote that because I knew you were going to get there.
Yeah.
And I think part of the problem is when we talk about privilege, we think it somehow diminishes our own accomplishments, and I don't think that's the case. I think it just teaches us empathy
Mm-hmm.
a little bit. I don't think we should resent ourselves or others for having privileges that others don't have, but we all could do a better job at being less naive to our privileges.
Yeah. Just recognizing it is, like I said, I didn't think about these things. Yeah. Wasn't necessary.
So I put like a hypothetical thing in here. Imagine
Okay.
we're running a 100-meter dash.
I've seen this. I think you got this from a video, maybe.
Kind of like I've applied some components.
Okay.
In my lane, there are no hurdles.
Mm-hmm.
In your lane, there are 10 hurdles. We have to assume that we run the same pace, because if this was real life, you would still probably beat me.
Okay.
But if you had 10 hurdles and I had none, would we reach the finish line at the same time?
No.
Or with the same amount of effort?
No.
So some people have to work harder.
Yeah.
They have to go over 10 hurdles before they even make it to the line in which we started.
Mm-hmm.
Our starting points are our privileges. The platforms that we've been placed on above others help us to succeed more easily. How can we expect another to keep pace with us at our starting line if they've already been running miles? not everyone starts on the same track. Not everyone can run the same pace. Some people have fans cheering them on and others are getting booed. Some people get to run on a straight track, some are on an obstacle course. But once we recognize our own privileges, I think we can put them to use in supporting others. We can invite others to our paths that have been cleared for us. We can create programs that help others get support that we will likely take for granted. That we already likely take for granted.
Yeah.
Being naive to our own privilege may help us win our own personal medals, but it will never motivate us to support the whole team. So how can we make the world a better place if we're only looking out for ourselves? And I'm privileged to be able to have these conversations with you. And I feel like we're starting to reach some of our own self-actualization needs, but sharing these self-realizations with others so we can help clear other people's obstacles. So that was my goal. Hopefully that helps somebody who can get there at this point in their lives. And I'm thankful for my volunteer here who had to recognize things about himself that sometimes are hard to hear. Like you don't want to feel like your accomplishments aren't worth the same as somebody else's. They've had to work harder to get to the same place, but it's just a fact of life. And I think we can't be, it's not something to be ashamed about, it's just something we have to recognize. And
Yep.
that's it.
That's good.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Anything else?
I don't. Thank you.
Thank you.